Hello everybody, good to see you all again. Today we are going to do a video called Why Make Existence Out of Mathematics? What use do we get out of making existence out of mathematics? Are we really making it out of mathematics, or is existence made out of mathematics in and of itself? So of course this is based on ontological mathematics and the philosophical idealist treatise by Mike Hockney. And this is all about classical Illuminism, the religion of Illuminism. So what is existence made out of? So traditional religion uses God. I mean, that's a pretty interesting question. Have you ever asked that question before? What is existence made out of? What is it all made out of? All of it, the whole thing put together. Not like what is sand made out of? What is a carbon atom made out of? Not that, but what is existence in and of itself made out of? Now, I guess that's kind of a hard question because, if you talk to a sensing type, like a materialist, a scientific materialist, they're not going to understand that question at all. They would say, what do you mean? You mean what is a blade of grass made out of? What is glass made of? What is air made of? Like they kind of wouldn't understand the question existence. They wouldn't have a concept for that because they can't really put that into sensory terms. They can only think of objects. They would say, so you're asking what is a star made out of? So in ontological mathematics, in true philosophy, what we want to do is, of course, explain what everything is made out of. And we can actually do that with ontological mathematics. Okay, so what is existence made out of? So traditional religion uses God. And this isn't too bad of an answer, in fact. This is, in fact, a much more rational answer than anything that scientific materialism has put forward. Scientific materialism, I think that's the next thing here, yes, doesn't even really cover that answer. It doesn't really answer it, doesn't really address it at all. And I think they're quite happy to say that they don't try to address it because they don't know how to perform any experiments to address that question. So traditional religion uses God, but the problem with that philosophically, as we've covered in the previous videos, is that God is mystical, and it has this problem of infinite regress because you have to ask what God is made out of, and you would say, well, it's some other force that makes God, or it's just always existed. Well, that's just mystical, right? There has to be a reason why it has always existed. You can do that with ontological mathematics, as we've been going through in recent videos, but to just say God is just what is, well, that's still pretty mystical. Okay, so scientific materialism really has no position at all. At best, it reduces to the mystical and infinite regress. At worst, it's simply completely absurd. Science has referred to randomness. It doesn't actually refer to energy. Science doesn't actually know what energy is. It just marvels that energy is amenable to any sort of mathematical analysis, says that energy is just mathematical relations. But the math isn't meaningful and doesn't actually mean anything and doesn't actually connect to reality in any way. And it's only a miracle that it actually works for doing science. So that's strange that they would have this concept of energy, which can only be used with math, and it's basically what all of physics and all of science is about, but then they say it's just a coincidence and it's just a miracle and doesn't actually have anything to do with anything in and of itself, with existence in and of itself. It's just a tool which coincidentally and inexplicably and miraculously works. I mean, that's such a strange position to be in. That's far worse of a logical position, an illogical position, than religion has ever been. In scholasticism, they would have never made such a silly illogical argument. Unreal probability wave functions in science, or a multiverse, which is the worst possible violation of Occam's razor of simplicity. Multiverse, where there can be all sorts of other different states, but still, it's not a. They've come up with this multiverse idea as if it explains why existence exists. It doesn't explain why existence exists at all, and it doesn't explain why mathematics works for existence. They just totally miss the question. Sensing types have a very difficult time comprehending what the question is actually about. So in philosophy, going back to Plato, you have the forms. With more recent philosophers, you have will and striving. The problem with these is that these still, although some of the arguments are quite well formed and are quite rational, it still kind of does reduce to the mystical and infinite regress because you can't really explain, it never really explains what the will is, for example, and why the will should exist, right? So what we want. So what do we want? So what we want is something which can be fully understood. It does not appeal to faith or mysticism, and which can explain the actual basic properties of existence. That's what we would want. Why wouldn't we want that? Of course that's what we want, right? Of course that's what we want. Of course we want to avoid the mystical. We want to avoid faith, right? We want to avoid things which can't be understood fully, right? And we want something that this would be cool if it can explain the most simple basic properties of existence. The basic essence, the basic properties of the essence of existence, its basic properties. That would be really cool because the forms don't really do that, and will doesn't really do that, and striving doesn't really do that, and just saying God doesn't really do that. And, I'm talking about the sort of the mathematical properties of existence, right? It would be nice to have something which explains the basic, this basic confusion in science as to why math works for existence at all. Wouldn't it be nice to explain that basic fundamental property of existence? Yeah, we'll get into that ahead. What we want is the thing in itself. We want the thing in itself, not some analogy, not some word sort of concept, not some mystical idea. We want the thing in itself. It has to be a thing. Existence has to be something. It has to be an object of some kind. It has to be some sort of substance of some kind. It has to be something real. We're in it. We're perceiving it. We're thinking about it. It has to be something real. And it has to be something which can be understood. It can't just be a mystery. We're part of it. We are it. We are in existence. We are of existence. We are composed of existence. We are one with existence. We are not separate from it. We are it. And it is us. And it's all around us. And it's inside us and outside of us and everywhere. There's no, boundary between ourselves and existence, right? We are existence all together in one. So what a strange state of affairs it would be if we couldn't understand what we ourselves are as existence. Wouldn't it be strange if we ourselves were a permanent, unsolvable mystery? Wouldn't that be strange? Unto ourselves? That'd be the strangest thing ever. Why wouldn't existence be able to understand itself? And we are existence. We are aspects, nodes of existence. So we're going to go through forever and eventually become extinct, never having understood what existence is made of. How strange would that be? Okay, so we should be able to understand what we ourselves are, where we come from, what we're made out of. So making it out of ontological mathematics gets you out of the mystical and out of infinite regress, because now we have a basis for reality and for why it should exist, as we've discussed in the previous videos, and what its basic properties are. We can understand it. It's no longer mystical. It's no longer faith. It's something you can rationally understand. Oh, this is what existence is made out of. Oh, this is existence's basic property as to why it exists and not otherwise. And this is how it works at this most basic level. Why wouldn't you want that? That's wonderful, right? Of course, we will see why other people don't want that. There's only one personality type who actually finds awe in that, and that's the INTJ and, the closely related personality types. We actually find awe and wonder in the answer, whereas everyone else, I'll get to this in a minute, actually finds awe in not having the answer. Isn't it so interesting? It's so strange. It's so neat. It's so nice to be able to understand that. And again, of course, the INTJ understanding, we love the understanding of it. Other people don't like the understanding of it. Okay, so we're out of the mystical and infinite regress, and it explains the basic properties of existence. And this is it, justifies that existence is amenable to mathematical analysis. And that means that it demystifies science. It explains why science exists. It explains why science works. Science does not actually explain why itself works, and as we've discussed in the previous videos, in its reference to its use of mathematics, it calls its use of mathematics a miracle and has no explanation for why it can use math to do science. Well, with ontological mathematics, we fully explain why existence is amenable to mathematical analysis, because existence is math. It's made out of math. It's literally made out of it. It's the only thing existence could be made out of. It's fully comprehensible. We're taking away the mystery of it. It's no longer a thing of faith. It's no longer a thing of mysticism. It's now fully, rationally, 100% explainable and comprehensible. You know, it's funny because it's, on the one hand, it's the most complex concept which has ever been developed to date. On the other hand, it is the simplest and most trivial thing. It's actually so completely trivial. Existence is made out of math. Here's your options. And that, what does that mean? That simply means that existence is made out of reason. That's all that it means. And that means cause and effect, that there's cause and effect relationships. You know, so your options are either to have that or to not have that, right? So, I mean, would you be happier to say that existence is made out of unreason and irrationality and illogic and violation of cause and effect? I mean, would you take that position? If you take that position, then how can you explain that the planets circle the sun in a comprehensible mathematical way with cause and effect, with one position leading to the next position, and so on? I mean, you cannot take the position that existence is incomprehensible, meaning irrational, meaning illogical, meaning violating cause and effect, and meaning not mathematical, non-mathematical. I mean, how could you take that position yet be sitting here watching a YouTube video which requires such an insane degree of order and cause and effect and mathematical relationships to function that have to be consistent at all points over all time? This YouTube video would be watchable 1 billion years from now if it was to, you know, if the storage system was to last that long, right? It would still be watchable because the same laws of cause and effect would still apply, right? So what do you want? No cause and effect or cause and effect? Obviously, existence has to be comprehensible. We have to be able to comprehend it. So it solves Cartesian dualism between mind and matter. So this is one of the biggest problems, probably the biggest problem in all of philosophy, this problem of Cartesian dualism, which is mind, which is unextended substance, versus matter, which is extended substance, extended perception, right? So this is explained now via the Fourier transform. The Fourier transform, the mathematics of the Fourier transform demonstrates that you can have an immaterial frequency domain, a frequency structure, a structure of frequency, which can transform to extended objects, which can transform to extended space-time objects. That's what the Fourier transform shows you. Isn't that wonderful? And the Fourier transform is, of course, fully compatible with this whole idea of the circling and the monad being composed of an infinite number of circlings, which you take a section of circlings out from and transform them into space-time to get particularized space-time structures. So the Fourier transform is totally compatible with this, you know, circling idea, which you get with no consideration about the Fourier transform whatsoever. The circling idea comes from a totally different, independent logical analysis of what has to exist, of existence having to reduce to nothing, of something having to reduce to nothing. And then it turns out that this circling is fully compatible. It's not only fully compatible, it's actually totally the basis of Fourier transform theory. It's totally the basis of it. So it shows that you can have this unextended frequency domain of energy, of waves, of vibration, which can transform into space-time objects, into objects that occupy volume in space and in time. So how wonderful is that? I mean, isn't that great? That's great for logical consistency, isn't it? Don't we want logical consistency and comprehensibility? That's really great. Why would we reject that? So, and then finally, of course, existence is actually made out of mathematics. We're not just, you know, arbitrarily making existence out of mathematics and saying that it could be. No, it actually is. The understanding of this is that existence really in and of itself has to be made out of mathematics. It's not simply something that we're conveniently doing with a human language. Mathematics is in fact not a human language. And I'll get to a quote in a second at the end, which really drives that point home. Mathematics is the language of the substance of the nature of existence itself. It is existence in and of itself, as this expression, as we were discussing earlier, of reason, of rationality, of what has to be reason. It can't be irrational. It can't be illogical. It has to be a structure of reason. And so that is simply to say that it has to be a structure of mathematics, because mathematics embodies reason. Mathematics does nothing but what is reasonable. Mathematics doesn't do self-contradiction. That's not what mathematics does, right? Mathematics doesn't do that. Mathematics gets full comprehensibility and full rationality and full consistency at all times, right? And so if that's what existence itself also has to be, well, what a perfect unity. They are the same thing. They are, in fact, one and the same thing. So here's your options. Religion and God, mysticism and infinite regress. So do you want mysticism? Do you want faith? Well, then religion and God are what are for you. But what if you want to actually understand the thing in and of itself? So scientific materialism, that is simply, as we have seen, mysticism and infinite regress as well. It does no better. In fact, it does much poorly than what was attempted in the past with religion and with our concepts of God. Philosophy, most, again, reduced to mysticism and infinite regress. Ontological mathematics, what do you have? A finite, comprehensible, universal, self-contained, and complete explanation of itself, which also explains why 1, 2, and 3 have been used in the past and what they mean. So if it can be, is it? The goal of philosophy, religion, and science has always been to come up with an explanation for existence. I mean, hasn't it? Now, of course, in modern science, modern science is more just all about technology. It's not really in the game of the fundamental questions anymore. But really, isn't the point of having a mind? What's the point of having your mind? That you can be entertained on your smartphone and with distractions and computer games and whatever it is you do? No, hasn't it always been the goal of philosophy, of having a mind, of having the neocortex and language? Hasn't it always been to come up with an explanation for existence, to understand why existence exists and why we exist and what relation we have with it? Of course, we have to be part of it. We are it. We're not separate from existence. You get this idea and this feeling from scientists that they view us as some sort of separate entity from existence. We're not separate from it. There's no boundary between ourselves and existence. We are existence. So as existence, the question is, can we understand ourselves, which is to say, can existence understand itself or not? What a strange situation it would be if existence couldn't understand itself. It would just be the oddest thing. I mean, maybe that could be, but in fact, it isn't, because existence is made out of something rational. And if it's made out of something rational, existence is rational. So that means that it should be able to be understood through reason. And it can be now with ontological mathematics. So philosophy, thought has always, religion, and even science, the goal has always been to come up with an explanation for existence. So why resist an explanation finally provided which satisfies the usual logical fallacies? As always, it's due to preconceived personal preferences and personality types, invariably a product of personality types. You know, and the Myers-Briggs scale really does a good job at categorizing these. So the emotional types, they want their religion, they want a mystery. Well, they're just emotional, so they need an emotional mystery, and it's pretty much as simple as that. They don't want to understand it. They just want to feel sort of enveloped in some sort of love with it, that it occupies, or that it constitutes some sort of love field, and that you simply need to feel this love, and then that is your answer. For them, the answer is love. For them, the answer is a feeling. For them, feeling love is the answer. If they feel love, so if they subscribe to a religion which makes them feel love, which makes them feel like existence has a love for them, then that's an answer, right? They don't need an answer where they, can work out a math equation and say, oh, okay, so 1 + 1 = 2 here, and they're finding that's not how it works for them. For them, the answer has to be emotional. It has to be love. So they have to be told through whatever religious means, whatever religious story, that existence is a big structure of love, and this love wants to fill itself into you, so to speak, and give itself to you, right? And if that's true, then that becomes the answer. So a religion that tells them that then is the answer, because it's love and it satisfies love. Okay, so scientists are the sensing types, And as we've seen, they really come up with no answer at all. They're quite nihilist, in fact. They don't want reason, they don't want a rational answer, and they don't want an emotional answer either. And then you have the intuitive, the new age. So these are all just forms of infinite mystery. So the scientists want an infinite mystery. That's why they've come up with multiverse theory and randomness, because it's all just an infinite mystery. So they all want mystery. All these types seem to hate a finite answer. As I said earlier, it seems to be only the INTJ and closely related types who actually want a comprehensible answer. For some reason, it gives us a sense of awe to comprehend it. For these other fellows, it gives them a sense of awe to not comprehend it, or to comprehend it in non-rational ways, so to speak, right? So for the scientist, it gives them a sense of awe to have something which is incomprehensible, such as multiverse theory or randomness, something which has no basis in rationality or provability whatsoever. That gives them a sense of awe. So the emotional types gives them a sense of awe to be united with love. The new age sort of intuitive types, they, get off on this sense of awe from an infinite mystery which can never be solved, right? So for the INTJ types, what gives us awe, what gives us the sense of awe is comprehending it rationally, comprehending it with our mind. So existence cannot be any of the other options, since they in fact provide no rational answer. So of course the other types, they reject a rational answer anyway. They're not looking for a rational answer. They want an emotional answer or a mystical answer that actually can't be understood. So, I mean, the rational answer is really limited to the INTJ and closely related types. But ultimately, come on, can't you even admit, can we not get these fellows to admit that something mystical or something that requires faith is not actually a rational answer? It's just something that you just have to accept, right? So we want to go beyond that. We want to understand fully what it is. So if there's no other option left, then ontological mathematics explains the most fundamental aspects of existence. So let's go back to this quote, or let's go to this quote from Galileo Galilei. Really great quote, which makes the point. So philosophy, in his time we would have been talking about nature, is written in that great book which ever is before our eyes. I mean the universe. But we cannot understand it if we do not first learn the language and grasp the symbols in which it is written. The book is written in mathematical language, and the symbols are triangles, circles, and other geometrical figures, without whose help it is impossible to comprehend a single word of it, without which one wanders in vain through a dark labyrinth. So that's a really wonderful quote, which really makes the point. Of course, in modern times in ontological mathematics, it's not simply triangles, circles, and geometrical figures. It's the frequency domain of the circlings in the Fourier transform ontological Fourier mathematics. And certainly, it's true that you cannot understand a single aspect of this universe without mathematics, though I'll just say again, that's of course not what everybody is looking for. Not everybody is looking to comprehend it. So do you think that, what do you think? Do you think that the comprehension of the universe will only ever be limited to the INTJ personality types? Is that a fair assessment to make? I mean, should we say that the comprehension that the religious types receive in their, filling up their heart with the sensation of love, a concept of love that's grand and infinite and exists out there and loves you and wants to take care of you and wants you to come to it? I mean, should we dismiss that answer? Is it fair to do that? Well, I don't know. I mean, is that a logical, rational answer? Well, it's an answer for them. In any case, we're looking for a logical, rational answer for us. In any case, I suppose it's simply not for everybody. It's for INTJ types and closely related types to actually comprehend it. And like I said, we feel awe, we feel wonder, we feel satisfaction in comprehending it, in making it finite, in removing all mystery, in removing all logical problems, and having a logically adamantine, perfect system for understanding existence in and of itself and all aspects of existence. First, why it exists in the first place. Second, what its basic properties are, mathematical, and then so on from there. We can understand all aspects of it, and that gives us a sense of wonder, a sense of satisfaction. And in fact, it doesn't. It does the opposite for other types. For other types, if you fully explain it or demonstrate these things to them, they're very repulsed by it, right? It really repulses the emotional type. It really repulses the sensing type, and it really repulses the intuitive type. So the religious type who wants it to be about love and wants a being out there that loves them, the sensing type who wants it to be about, well, again, mystery, randomness and nihilism. Ultimately, they want it to be about nihilism. They want it to be about a universe that has no care or concern for you, that you're not even a part of. They don't even like saying that we are part of existence, and that existence is us, and that therefore we should be able to understand ourselves as existence, understanding existence. They would reject all that and really dislike that comment. So they want the nihilism for some reason. They really get off and feel satisfied with nihilism. And then you have the intuitive types, which are basically the mystical types, and just go for the infinite grand mystery of it all, which can never be understood. This infinite mystery, the Kantian type, sort of, Kant, with Kant, the philosopher Immanuel Kant, and his noumenal domain, which is existence in and of itself, but which is always excluded from comprehension by humans. So of course that's just a strange thing to have existence, which that separates us from existence. That separates existence from existence. That makes two different types of existence. One existence over here, which is of existence but doesn't and can never understand itself, and then real existence. It's just a weird system. You have existence, which is the same thing, but it's a different existence which isn't part of itself, that doesn't understand. Anyway, it's totally incomprehensible. It's not worth trying to explain Kant. Other than that, other than what has been done before about it, just reducing to mysticism, basically. So yeah, they really don't like these three other types. They really don't like having an answer. It really turns them off to have an answer. And so, what are we going to do with that? How are we going to proceed, and where are we going to go in the world from that? I mean, I don't know how to solve that problem. I suppose it doesn't matter, and we should simply move on with ourselves and do what we can with it. And we should, develop ontological mathematics, and we should develop an institute for applied ontological mathematics. And so that's what I've done, just simply with that Facebook group some of you are part of, an institute for applied ontological mathematics, where the first thing that we have done is we have, debunked science in a very practical, demonstrated, empirical way. We've shown what it has done to itself with its having no basic foundational principles of its own logic, rationally, in terms of its use of mathematics and, and its dependency on observation rather than on reason. Okay, so that result obviously being this flat Earth climate science issue, which science has hilariously gotten itself into, to literally doing flat Earth in climate science, flat Earth in modern physics. And so that's the first sort of demonstration of applied ontological mathematics, is how to get us out of this, what's going to be basically an extinction level event on Earth if it's not corrected. Okay, anyway, rambling enough. Take care. Have a good night. Bye-bye.